All right, perfect. So yeah, to get started, again, my name is Kadeem Thomas, and I am the Peace Corps recruiter for USF at Tampa, Florida. So for a little bit of background information on myself, and again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise a hand and we can answer those when they come up. But for me, I'm from Tampa, Florida, and I never really had much chances to leave Tampa, Florida until I did a study abroad in my undergrad in 2014. That was the first time that I really got to kind of travel abroad, and then I went to Spain during this time period studying Spanish and history of Spain and all that other fun stuff. And while we were there, one of the biggest things that I got to do was the ability to intern with a food bank that was there called the Salamanca Food Bank, and we got to work with people and kind of help and give back, kind of volunteering and giving back to people in a different country while we were learning a different language, and just working amongst their culture and, completely outside of my comfort zone. So that was like my first experience being outside the country, and I really enjoyed that. And so ever since then, I kind of tried to continue doing that, finding ways where I could travel abroad, help out, study, and do things like that. And so for my undergrad, I ended up doing 7 different study abroads, all over from South America to, Europe, and even eventually going to Africa with the Peace Corps. But so my major was international studies and my minor was Spanish, but really with a focus in linguistics. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do after leaving college. So I decided first to join AmeriCorps for a little while, did 2 years of that, and then eventually that helped me to join the Peace Corps. So so I didn't jump straight into the Peace Corps like some people may do right out of college. I took about a year or two of a gap in between there. But so that's eventually what got me to the Peace Corps. So yes, I am a returned Peace Corps volunteer along with over 240,000 nationwide. My name is Kadeem Thomas. I served in Botswana, Africa, and I worked in the health sector with my alma mater being University of South Florida, and the languages spoken in Botswana were Setswana and English. And so for a quick video on the Peace Corps.
Are you looking for more in this world? Be ready to be part of something bigger. Then we are looking for you. The big-hearted, the bold, the messy and gutsy, the teachers, the growers, the builders, the skilled, the sharers, the change makers. We need you. We are the Peace Corps. In more than 60 countries, we go all in and go all out. We are volunteers, partners, communities, working together, living together, bringing our experience, passion, and joy to building a better world together. We are powered by connection. We're driven by purpose. We join hands to make a difference. We open our arms, our hearts, our doors, our minds. We learn more, give more. We share freely and serve boldly. Are you ready to tackle the tough stuff? Learn more than you teach. Plant ideas and grow wise. To go the distance to make a difference. Then we have a place where you belong. Join us. The Peace Corps, going the distance to make a difference.
Awesome. And yeah, the way some of the things that video showcases is just the ability in Peace Corps for you to kind of go somewhere different, get out of your comfort zone, get into a whole new context, and you kind of can, in a cliche way, kind of find yourself or figure out, what is that you like doing, you don't like doing, and, you can just get into just different, you can just get into different things that normally you would not get into being on campus or being in the United States. So for the Peace Corps, it is a 2-year paid volunteership, and I would say the hardest thing for most students is hearing that it's 2 years long post-graduation. And so a lot of students first think of, all the things that they're going to miss out on in Tampa or with their family and friends and things like that. But one thing I always like to focus on is the fact of that's 2 years of stuff that you're going to experience, of context you're going to see, of people you're going to meet, of adventures you're going to have that others will never have, and you will never have if you did not get out of your comfort zone. So that is one big thing for kind of jumping into the Peace Corps and figuring out what you want to do next. So the Peace Corps mission is to promote world peace and friendship. We do this by fulfilling three strategic goals. The first one is to partner with people of interested countries in meeting their needs for trained individuals. And what this means is basically we do not just go to a country, we are invited to that country by the host nationals, and they see that there's a need for food or education or other things that they could use some help with bolstering and kind of creating this foundation for it. Then they reach out to us and we send someone over there, they look at everything, and then we start a program and start sending over U.S. citizens. Also, with that, we are promoting a better understanding of Americans on the part of people served and promote a better understanding of people's on the part of Americans. And that just means we are teaching other people in the world what Americans are like, and we're teaching Americans what other people in the rest of the world are like, because it's really hard to figure out what these things are like besides just movies and TV shows. And I know for me, I did not know much about Africa growing up, and even learning from school and stuff, I did not know that much about Africa. It wasn't until I got there and really learned about the 54 countries and the cultures within each of those countries. And again, for a lot of people in these other countries who have never met an American, their stereotypes is just what they've seen in movies, TV, social media, and all those other things. So you get to kind of be a window into the U.S. and to show them, how humanity can be. Yeah. Why choose the Peace Corps? You get to embrace an opportunity that is hands-on and collaborative and grassroots driven and fully integrate into a new culture and community. So when you join into the Peace Corps, it is a 2-year paid volunteership. It's actually 2 years and 3 months, as we should say. The first 3 months is going to be you training in the host country and possibly the capital of the country or one of those nicer cities. You'll be there with some host families. So you and all the other students or Americans who are there are all going to have like a family who's going to take care of you, show you the ropes, the culture, the language, all those fun things. For me, my host mom was an amazing person, especially when it came to cooking and cleaning and just being really open to like hearing me, learning about me and the things that I liked and them teaching me as well. But also I got really lucky and I ended up with a host brother that was my same age. So we hung out all the time, and even to this day, we still speak on Facebook and other things, and hopefully one day I can go visit again. So that's a really amazing thing. And then, yeah, being hands-on, one of the really amazing things about Peace Corps is that it's really hands-on and it's really initiative-based. And so it's like whatever there is there that you can assist with, or that, the locals need assistance with, or something y'all can come up with, if there's something that you can just find that can make things better, you can just jump on and do that. You can be really hands-on, and sometimes it gives you experience in things that you would normally need experience in, which can get controversial in different ways, with Americans going to other countries and doing, doctor type jobs where there's people in that country that could be doing that job, but we're really there to kind of help create a foundation and to bolster it so that the locals can do it. But so that's one thing that you can get the experience in these things, as well as, in the United States, there's many times where you probably would be good at something, but you can't do it until you have, shown prior experience, or you can't get the job without having experience, but you can't get experience without having the job. And so this kind of gets you kind of put into there. You get to sharpen your skills and build new ones while experiencing a unique service journey, and adapt and learn and grow in many ways, and be a window into a unique experience of peoples across the United States. So yeah, for me, like I had experience working with Coca-Cola back when I was maybe like 20 years old. And so that was completely unrelated to everything, but it did teach me how to do stockroom and storage. And so while we were sitting there, trying to figure out what to do, originally my first job was, so I guess to really start, Botswana has about 40% HIV AIDS rates. And the village that I lived in off of the border of Botswana and South Africa had about 90% HIV AIDS rates. So it was a lot higher. And while we were there, my main job was really to work with the malnourished children. We would take them in, give them food, medicine, weigh them. Of course, their mothers would be there, but we would help them, with all the different things to kind of make sure that they were as healthy as possible. And I did that for a while. Also, most villages speak English or some different variation or level of it. The village I was originally going to go to did, but because of circumstances, I ended up going to a different village. And again, I made it very clear that I was open for any challenge that came up. So for the Peace Corps staff, they had certain people in certain areas that they were for sure going to be safe, and they for sure had a hospital. They for sure had this because that's what they needed. I told them I was up for basically anything. And so they had a spot that was very distant, 8 hours away from the capital. And then that's where you got to a very small village. And then you went 2 hours into the bush of that village to get to my village. So that's where I was. And so there was not a lot of, assistance when it came to food or even electricity and other things. We had to be very self-reliant. So, yeah, first I was working with the malnourished children and make sure they had their food and everything. But one other thing that I noticed was that their pharmacy, when we looked into the pharmacy, it wasn't really organized correctly. And again, with the experience I had with Coca-Cola doing stockroom and storage, I was able to go in there and to help them organize it. And I noticed by going through the stock cards and just pulling everything out and setting it up by dates and making sure, what was there, what was duplicated, all that stuff. I found like 11-year-old AIDS medicine. I found malaria medicine that was way overheated. I found vials that were broken and just unusable. Just things just weren't as in pristine condition as they could be. And again, no one here in the village that I was working in had been trained for that. And again, there's lots of things that go into it versus just being in village life and no one's really out there training you. Also in Botswana, the doctors and nurses often moved, so if they went to one place after 2 years or so, they would go somewhere else, and then that would leave it open. Many different things, but so these are the kind of issues that we got to work in and help with. And so yeah, while I was there, again, not many people spoke English, so I had to learn Setswana. I had to meet with a local. I paid him to kind of tutor me and give me, some tips here and there. While I was speaking with people, I would take notes and whatever I could do to kind of learn the language. And over time, it became easier and easier to speak and understand. So yeah, those are some of the things that we did while we were there. And yeah, you work every day to make a lasting difference. And so, yes, in the Peace Corps, there are over 240,000 total volunteers to date. 90% of volunteers who would recommend service. 95% of volunteers have at least an undergraduate degree, and volunteers range in age from 20 to 86. But as long as you are able to, go and assist, there is no real age cap. And yeah, it's something great to do whether you're fresh out of college or even if you're going into retirement or if you're somewhere in between, just while you're trying to figure out what you want to do next as a stopgap. And another thing is it is a paid volunteership. So you are paid. We'll get into that a little bit more later, but basically you do not have to worry about you don't have to worry about housing. That's going to be paid for. You don't have to worry about medical or travel or food or any of that stuff. All that is paid for. So your main job there is to kind of just help out in the community, make sure the community does better, and also kind of make America look good in the end. But as well, it is a volunteership. So it is a 2-year, 3-month commitment, but it is a volunteership, meaning you are not stuck there. You do not have to stay the entire time. Yes, we would prefer that, and there are many benefits that would happen that you would gain from finishing the entire time. But we understand when you're in a whole new country, in a whole new context, whole new culture, and you're there by yourself, thousands of miles away from your family, things may happen where you might just have to say, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I got to go back home, and that is no issue, and there are no repercussions from that. You would just go back home, they'd fly you back, and that would be it. But so that is one of the amazing things is like when you're going, you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm stuck here for the next 2 years and however so long. No, you do have the ability to come back the next week, the next month, a year, 99 days. But again, for most people, once they get there and they get into their position, their job, they don't end up wanting to leave. Some people end up wanting to stay longer. And even while I was there, I met a volunteer who started in 1980s and he just never left. So many amazing opportunities there. These are the different sectors that you are able to work in. We have food security or agriculture, youth and development, education, environment, health, and community economic development, which is basically business. And then there's secondary projects. So you can end up doing multiple things depending on your site and situation. So for me, my main job was health. And again, my background was international studies and linguistics, so I didn't really have any health background, but I chose to send me anywhere. I guess I didn't mention this earlier, but so you can choose to go to a specific country or and specific job, or you can say send me anywhere. And I didn't know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go, so I said send me anywhere. And they needed help with health in Botswana, so I ended up in the health sector in Botswana. And yeah, so I was originally working with health sector, but I ended up doing a lot of community economic development, especially doing like this, the supply chain of their medicine, helping them to organize the medicine, make sure that that it was viable, that it could be used. I ended up saving them hundreds of dollars, maybe even thousands of dollars by reorganizing everything, reorganizing the way that they ordered, reorganizing the setup of the pharmacy and everything so that things wouldn't go bad as quickly and so they would only have what they needed when they needed it. As well as we did some agriculture or food security stuff because as I told you earlier, our village was 2 hours away from the closest grocery store. So we ended up having to grow a lot of our own food, and we would do some things to help teach people, the locals, how to have more yield, how to get more bang for their buck, and how to plant a garden that lasts longer so they don't have to replant it every year. As well as we did after school programs with the youth. One thing I'm big into is poetry, and so that's something I like to do. And I would go to the youth in our village and just do after school programs with them. We would talk about poetry, maybe write some poetry, read some poetry. A lot of them love Tupac and Maya Angelou, and it's just something to help them learn how to express themselves and to learn how to play in different ways and just become more human. Everyone needs to do a little poetry, a little music here and there, and so I really love that and appreciated it. And so yeah, there's many different things you can do depending on where you go. So yeah, these are different countries that you can go to, either in Central or Southern America, Southern Africa, Southeast Asia, and Eastern Europe. And then you will see there's some countries that have asterisks next to them for many different reasons. Even the Ukraine, I believe, is still on here with an asterisk. And I believe that means that it is virtual. There are some places in the Ukraine where you could work virtually, so through Teams and things. But so when you see the asterisk, you can just look for further information to see what exactly that is. But again, there are 3 different ways that you can work with the Peace Corps. There is the normal route of just going in for 2 years, 3 months and helping out, getting training and all that. There's also Peace Corps response, which is the professional route, which is more of if you already have skills, you don't need to be trained. You've already spent time as a doctor or a teacher or something else like that. You can go to one of these countries for a year or less to help with a specific project. And so when you go to the Peace Corps website, you can see exactly how long that is and what projects there are. And then there's virtual as well, which started in 2020 as a way so that people can still help out in virtual ways. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I imagine maybe for teaching or other things, you can be in Florida but still help people in all these other countries. And yeah, so this is one of the jobs that I had, supply chain management with the HIV, AIDS, and medicine shortages in my village. And so one of the things you can notice here in the picture is that we have cardboard boxes that are separating the medicine there, because when we first got there, it was just basically all the medicine was just in a corner and you just had to sift through it to figure out what you wanted. But so we were able to find these cardboard boxes. And again, with the Peace Corps, you're working with what you have in the area. So this is what we had. So I got these cardboard boxes to separate these different medicines so we could tell these ones are from asthma, these ones are for, women's, or these ones are for eye or whatever else it happens to be. And then you can also see right above, like there's this little piece of wood that I found, and I put that there with a bunch of bricks. So there's bricks that we got from outside and cleaned off and put there to create shelving so that we can organize things a little bit more and make it, a little more workable. So those are some of the things that we did. So again, when you're in the Peace Corps, a lot of it's going to be initiative based and just finding out what little things can I do to make things a little bit better. Kind of like how Will Smith said, when you want to build a wall, you don't just build the wall, you put each brick in as best as you can until you eventually have a wall. When you're going to the Peace Corps, you may not even get to build the entire wall. You may just get to put in one brick or just get to put in a little bit of cement. But doing that over time makes a big difference. So yeah, other things we worked on with the sustainable gardens, community workshops, sustainable garden training, just showing them that, it's more than just throwing a seed in the ground. If you were to dig it this deep and if you were to add in these things, some eggshells, some nutrients and other things, it can make it last longer, give you more, and just help you kind of get more bang for your buck. And you wouldn't have to travel as often to get food. So more things we did to try to help out. And then the last one, the biggest project that I took on was building capacity. This would have been really big for the economy of the village. So what the issue was that, again, we lived in a safari zone. So my village was about 10-minute drive from a safari zone. And we had lions, giraffes, monkeys, all that fun stuff. You learn quickly that monkeys are not fun. Once they get a hold of your stuff and go into the trees, that's theirs now. But yeah, so it was a really amazing experience. But one of the things that we noticed is just no one ever stopped in our village. They would always drive past our village and go straight to the safari zone. Understandably, there's a lot more cooler things in the safari zone. But so what our plan was that there was in the center of the village, there was just a big open space with nothing there. And there was also a daycare a little bit ways down. And what we were hoping to do was to build a playground in the center of the village and also make it like a concert area, because there's often people having concerts all around in different random spaces. But if we just had a centralized area in the village where they would have concerts and also have a playground so kids could play there, as people are driving by, going to the safari zone, they would see this and they would possibly stop there, have their kids play for a little while, spend some time in the village, maybe spend some money in the restaurant. There was a restaurant which was basically just someone's house that maybe one or two people stopped in weekly, but like if real visitors actually started coming by, stopping in this restaurant, spending money, then they could grow a little bit more. As also for the stores and things. We were just trying to find a way to get people to stop in the village and to help out, to spend a little bit of money. So for this plan, I had to do research, and I found a company called The Power of Play, which is a company in Canada, a non-governmental organization in Canada that goes all around the world to build playgrounds. So what I was able to do is speak with them, and they agreed to come to Botswana, Africa, and help us to build a playground in our village. What we just had to do was get the volunteers and materials. And so from there, we reached out to the Peacecorps for grants, did a lot of grant writing to try to get some money to help out, and we were able to get approved for a few hundred, close to 1,000 for construction. And then the final thing was we had to get volunteers. So I had to go into the village, and I had already been doing this my entire time there, just speaking with people, speaking to the elders, just talking to whether it's kids or whoever's walking around, getting to know people so they would know who I was. And so after I had already gotten to know people, I would go to, the meetings and let them know, I was like, hey, we can help out the village a lot. All we need is just volunteers to help build this thing. And so a lot of people were really up for it, and they just wanted something to do anyway. So yeah, we had all that set up, and we were going to have everything start May 2020 is when we were going to first break ground and build the playground. And that did not end up happening because, as I'm sure most of you are very aware of recent history, and March 2020, everything shut down, the world shut down, and so we were not able to get to this. And so with that, one of the things that we learned about Peace Corps is, whenever it comes to safety, they are very on top of that. And so they did not want a lot of sick volunteers all around the world trying to manage, different sicknesses in different areas and different contexts. So they ended up just evacuating us and bringing us all back home. So March 13th was the day that the president said that COVID is a thing and we need to start taking it serious and shutting down. March 15th, 2 days later, I woke up in a hotel in Florida, wondering if my whole time in Africa was just a dream. And so that was when it ended. About a year into my service, I did not get to finish the full 2 years because of COVID. But so one of those things, just as people often ask, is like, how safe is it? Or is there this or that? If there is anything that is unsafe, they will get you home very quickly. And I can give you firsthand account of that.
Yeah, I have questions. I'm curious, you mentioned the high HIV rate. Was there a way that they could prevent the children from getting it if the mother had it?
Yes, so there's a lot of medicines, and I can't remember exactly what they're all called, ARVs and other things, but there's medicines for preventative so that you can't get it. There's also medicine so that they won't transmit it, so the mom can take this medicine, and as long as she's up on her regiment daily and, on top of everything, then she can feed her child and they won't get HIV or AIDS. But the issue is sometimes the medicine isn't viable, or they just don't take it every day, and many other reasons. Maybe they can't even afford it. So then many other reasons why the HIV AIDS will start to erupt again, and then they got to do things to bring it back down.
I see. What was the hardest part of living there?
The hardest part of living there?
Hmm. I mean, lack of AC or,
Well, yeah, again, so some people lived in very, very nice places. Some people lived in the capital where they had AC, they had stores, they had clubs, they had all that stuff.
yeah.
Again, I for some reason told them I was up for a challenge. And so where I was, the electricity would go out maybe three days a week. There would be no electricity.
Hmm.
And it was very hot. And if you had electricity and you had the fans and everything going and the AC, it would be less hot.
Oh my goodness.
When there's
Wow.
no AC, you're just sitting outside. Just if you have nothing else to do, you're just sitting outside waiting for the sun to go down during certain
Oh,
times of the day.
wow. Wow.
So yeah,
Wow.
that was difficult.
And wow. So then you somehow you got, managed to get back and got an offer ultimately from Nestle, which is it sounds pretty amazing. The opportunity you got, right? I
Yes,
mean, that's great.
yeah, it is absolutely amazing, and it's really also amazing because I can draw a straight line from my time in the Peace Corps to what I'm about to start doing next month. So yeah, because I decided to join the Peace Corps and help out. And again, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I said, "Send me anywhere. Send me to do anything." So they put me into the health sector, working with HIV and AIDS. I had no background in any of that, but I started learning it. And then while I was doing that, just serendipitously, I found out like, hey, I do have experience in storage and stock room. So I helped them with their medicine. Ended up doing a lot with that. And then I got the training from Peace Corps to do more with logistics and supply chain as well. So I would have more of an idea of what I was doing. So that kind of got me onto supply chain and logistics and things like that. And then when I eventually came back to the U.S., I wanted to go to school a little bit more because I wanted to make sure I had a way so I could have an international job that allowed me to travel around and help and do these things that I've fallen in love with doing all this time. So I went in for a master's degree in supply chain management, actually two master's degrees, but the first one was MBA. Then I did the supply chain management as well. The reason I did the MBA at first is because when I first asked about the master's in supply chain, they told me I did not qualify for it. I had to have at least like 2 years experience, but technically I have like a year and a half experience. So I didn't
Ah,
get, yeah. So I don't know exactly what it was, but I didn't get to do the master's in supply chain management. So I did MBA, and as I was going through the MBA, one of the things that I needed to do to complete it was to do a study abroad. And I said, all right, I'll do a study abroad. And there's one in France that the supply chain management, and I've been studying French for years and I've never really had a chance to use it. So let me do that. And so I really just wanted to go use my French, but um, yeah, I ended up learning about supply chain while I was there and learning about the supply chain of because we were in Normandy, France. So we were where D-Day happened when, the US came in and invaded France to get to Germany and end World War II. Like learning about the supply chain of that was just absolutely mind-boggling to think of how people with no phones or no computers were able to go from the US to England and then get things, they had to create full like drivable like floating cities, kind of floating highways that they could bring all the machines, tanks in with. There's so many things that they had to do, and to figure all this stuff out, it was absolutely amazing. So that was pretty cool. And while I was on that trip, my teacher said, "Hey, you should go for the master's in supply chain again, and it seems like you would be very good with it from what you've shown us here." So I went ahead and applied for it again, and then I ended up taking that master's degree, finishing it. So I got the master's degree in supply chain management, and then I ended up having to do one more semester of my MBA. And it was really lucky that I didn't finish my MBA before that, because I had one last semester, and instead of finishing it, I did the supply chain management and then finished the MBA. But if I would have finished it before that, I would have not gotten this job, I don't think, because
oh, wow.
because since I finished the supply chain management and then I had to finish the MBA, I was still on campus. And so since I was still on campus, I was still the Peace Corps recruiter on campus. And all kinds of things ended up happening. The person who was my supervisor ended up in another position. So I ended up being underneath the director of USF World as a Peace Corps recruiter. And then just speaking with her, she was like, "Hey, we have this event going on where we're going to be talking about studying abroad, and we know that you've done some study abroads before." Not mentioning that I've done 9 study abroads, but she was like, "Yeah, you've done a study abroad before. Would you like to talk at this event?" And so I was like, "Yeah, no, for sure, I'd love to, and I'm here, so why not?" And so I went to the event and I went and spoke at it about how I've done all these study abroads, how it's completely changed my life, how much, I love just traveling and helping people and all these different things I've been able to do. And, everyone really loved my speech. Um, and then one people that really liked it was there was a CEO from a company in Quebec, and I mentioned that I spoke French, so he just started a conversation with me in French at the very end of the talk, and me and him spoke French for a little while. At the very end of that, I was like, all right. And then there was one other person there who was just absolutely mind blown by my speech and me speaking French and all this other stuff. And it happened to be the CEO of Nestle, Steve Presley, who was there, and he really liked what I had to say.
Wow, that is quite the story. And you worked really hard, and you learned multiple languages in the process too. Besides the 9 study abroad programs, you can learn multiple languages, right?
Yeah. From doing all the study abroads, I can confidently say that I can speak French and Spanish and Portuguese. I'm less confident in that one, but I can speak, as well as English. And I've learned many other things. I've learned a little bit of sign language that I don't remember anymore. I've learned Setswana, which I don't use anymore, but I could still speak a little bit. But yeah, I just kind of followed paths that I thought were really interesting, and I didn't really have an exact route of what I was going to do with my future, but this is just stuff that I found that I had a passion for, and it ended up working out really well.
And Nestle's a big multinational conglomerate, so there's probably a lot of opportunities to go the international route, right?
Yes, and I made that very clear to Steve, that I really wanted to be international, but after speaking with them for a while, they said that I would have to take the position in Ohio for at least 2 years, get some training there, and then from there, it's possible I could go international. So Ohio does not sound like Spain, but that's where I'm heading.
Well, yeah, and they tried to create a position for you. Is that how that started?
So they were trying to make sure they were trying to get me in because Steve Presley, wanted me in, as well as with all my experience. But the first job that they had set up for me, I wasn't quite qualified for that job. It had a lot to do with machine learning, AI, and other stuff that I just wasn't fully there for. Like, I found it interesting and I learned some of it, but I could not answer their questions as much as I probably needed to. So then they ended up giving me another position and just finding a position that worked better for me. So yeah, it was pretty amazing because normally, when you go to a job interview and if you don't answer some questions correctly, you don't expect them to call back, but they called back multiple times, and that was amazing.
That's wonderful. I mean, that's wonderful. You made the connection with the CEO, and he was so impressed. That's amazing. It goes to show following your passion and doing these kind of things that interest you can end up in a really good spot, like what happened with you. And anyway, I love hearing your story. I love all of this, and I still want to do Peace Corps. Maybe when I retire, I'll do Peace Corps someday. I wanted to do it in my 20s, and the timing with some family stuff that was going on didn't work out. But anyway, it's a great way to get into international jobs. Do other people from the Peace Corps, did they go international jobs after that at some point?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have taken many different routes going international jobs or even coming back and doing government jobs. I would say the biggest majority of people going into the Peace Corps are probably like healthcare related. So a lot of them end up becoming nurses and doctors, even Doctors Without Borders and things like that. One of the most interesting things I found was there was someone who went into the Peace Corps back in, I want to say, the 70s or so. And right now, like, he's worked with the government in many different fashions, and I think even the CIA and everything else, because when he went to the Peace Corps, he did the Peace Corps in Iran back when that was a thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so after that ended, he had so much knowledge and so much, just firsthand experience that his career took off like a rocket. So, and he's an amazing person to speak with.
Yes, and I mentioned before, the CEO, the co-founder of Netflix, served in the Peace Corps from 1983 to 1985 in Swaziland. His name is Reed Hastings. And so that was influential in his path. and in his entrepreneurial path, co-founding Netflix.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I'm sure if we talk with him, there's probably some, little path that went from him being in Eswatini or Swaziland, as it was once called, to going
Right.
to creating Netflix. That is pretty
Right.
crazy.
Well, I mean, a lot of times you do see a lot of entrepreneurs all over the place in African countries, small businesses. That's how a lot of things run there. So that
Yeah,
might have influenced him in that way to become an entrepreneur.
yeah. That's something I found really interesting is when you're in Africa and you'll see it's like there's a lot of things that just aren't there yet. That's like we have all these things in the U.S., but you go back to Africa in certain places, and there's people who take advantage of this, and they're like, you know what? I know how this could be done in the States, and I could make some decent money and have a decent living in the States doing it, or I could do it in Africa and create something new here.
Right. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Sometimes you'll see, okay, in certain areas in certain countries in Africa, you'll see, okay, well, this person's claimed this corner and this is where they sell fruit. And they don't have a permit, but they've claimed that area. And another person always claims another area where they sell, whatever else. And it just kind of, organically happens that way, and people know where to find things. It's not quite like a mall or a shopping center, but they still know where to go to. This is where you go to get your bike tires repaired, or
Yeah, you could definitely create a company out of that. I know there very often in Botswana and maybe other places as well, the Africans will ask you as an American, they're like, do you know where I can get clothing for cheap? Can you get me like Goodwill or whatever else? Can you ship that over to me so I can sell it here? Because whatever, if you're able to get it real cheap to them, it's going to be really, really good,
oh,
really expensive, especially you getting shoes. They'll always ask you, can you ship shoes over here? All that stuff, because people want to be on the top fashion that Americans are on. And especially
oh,
if you're a well paid African, then you want to have all the stuff that the Americans have just so you can show off.
wow, that's interesting. And then that could also help solve a problem with all the fast fashion and the fast fashion waste that we have here in the U.S. And kind of recycling the clothing and so forth, if you will. Yeah,
Yeah,
business idea for sure.
very, very true. And like as you say that, I also think about for Reed Hastings who did Netflix because a really big thing here with Peace Corps people is like movies, like to spend time. So we'll all get together and have all of our hard drives together and switch movies back and forth or whatever else it is. And I could definitely imagine him back in his time in the Peace Corps. It's like if there was an easier way to get films and movies so we could watch them in this country here because we don't have Blockbuster, I could definitely see that. But
I know it'd be fascinating to talk with him or see if there's some kind of interview about that online somewhere
maybe,
about his experiences.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
all right,
thank you.
no problem. I'm just gonna finish up the last few slides.
Yeah.
So yeah, benefits during service. Again, you have your living stipend. So when we were in Botswana, Africa, the average person made about $100 a month. So for us, you're being paid slightly above the average. So we were paid $300 a month. So for being in Africa, a lot of the locals are going to look at you like, oh, you are rich, you're well paid. But being an American receiving $300 a month, you might be like, what am I doing with this? But it is more than you need while you're there, as well as housing. Your housing is to be taken care of. Again, it depends on where you are in your situation. Like there were many huts in Africa, but all the huts were used as storage and garages and stuff like that. All the volunteers lived in either a small house or a very big house, just depending on where you were. My house was very big, but I was so far out, no one ever visited me, so it was fine. Travel benefits, you get 2 travel days a year, 2 travel days a month. So it ends up adding up, and depending on your situation in your area, you may end up doing a lot more traveling than others. Medical and dental coverage, it'll be some of the best medical care you will have as an American because they want to make sure you are giving a smiling, bright, healthy face to all those because you are representing the U.S. Student loan assistance, deferment, so you don't have to pay while you're there. And also, I forget exactly what the program is, but basically, if you set your payment amount to zero because you're making such a little bit amount, it'll show that you have been paying that whole time. So for 2 years, you've been paying $0, but that means you've been paying for 2 years. And after 10 years, it's all wiped out. So, that's something that you can work with if you do want to do 10 years of service in different aspects. It doesn't have to be just the Peace Corps. And career and skills training. Again, I got training in supply chain management and logistics from the Peace Corps, and that helped me to get on my way to getting my job with Nestle now. Um, Safety and health. There are medical personnel available 24/7, security officers, community immersion training, and dedicated victim advocacy. And again, if anything happens and if you need to leave the country, they will get you out of there as soon as possible. Benefits after service. If you do stay for the full 2 years and 3 months, then you get the transition funds, which is basically like a $10,000 bonus to get yourself reaccustomed back into the States or whatever else you're going to do next. I used half of that to buy a car when you could buy a car for $5,000, and then the other half to get an apartment during 2020 and all that fun stuff. You get professional skills training, graduate school benefits, federal employment advantages like the non-competitive eligibility. So for federal jobs, your resume goes on top of everyone else's resume, so they speak to you first, or at least look at you first, as well as even for medical jobs, law jobs, things like that. This really stands out and really kind of gets your foot in the door, especially for if you're going to be a doctor or for anything like that. They love to hear when you can say, oh, I went to a different country. I went to Sri Lanka or Moldova. I was out of my comfort zone. I was out of my context and I succeeded. I was able to help. I learned this. I even utilized this language. Like doing those things really stands out. And when you're in the middle of an interview, that's what they really want to hear about. And then finally, yes, the graduate school benefits. So there's the Paul D. Coverdell Fellowship Program, which is in more than 100 universities, and it is a scholarship that can assist you with going further, whatever it is that you want to end up doing or learning more about. When you go to the website, it'll look like this. You can browse, apply, and go through the health history. This first part goes about 3 months, and then you'll get your interview, and they'll invite you. And once you've been invited, then there's another 3 months of clearance, onboarding, and departure. So it's about a 6-month process. So if you're hoping to leave, within 6 months, you want to apply soon. If you're not going to be graduating for another year or so, then you can apply when you get closer to graduation. The website looks more like this. You'll see, apply now. You'll see the country, Moldova, the different jobs there are, health, education, volunteer, whether you're going to be in the health sector, the language is needed. If couples are accepted, I forgot to mention, couples are accepted, so that is something. You can bring your partner with you if you'd like. And the 4 competencies is just basically having sector-specific training. They prefer for you to have some health training if you're going to the health sector, but again, if that's the need and you don't have training, then they will train you. Foreign language skills really only applies to Spanish-speaking countries. They want you to have taken a Spanish class at least if you're going to a Spanish-speaking country, just to kind of help out with the immersion. But if you're going to another country, whether it's Moldova or Fiji or whatever other country, they don't expect you to know the language. So you'll get your training while you're there. Intercultural competence, this just means that they want you to have experience working with people of different cultures so you can understand, the differences and some of the things to watch out for. And finally, professional leadership experience. They want you to have taken the initiative in something, maybe been a leader of something, or just, join a club, a crew, do something that shows that you're willing to step out and make a change, or just, be able to lead. And I think that is, the final page. And you can apply at www.peacecorps.gov. Or you can visit, if you're at the USF campus, Tampa, you can visit the USF World offices and FAO building 112 is the number of the office. And you can always go to this link here to see the USF Education Abroad opportunities. And then the very bottom is my email if you'd like to send me an email there. And so, this is where you can look into different Peace Corps opportunities and see what's there and apply. And at the very least, if you do not go for the Peace Corps, and if you are a student, I would say at least study abroad and try to leave your country, try to experience, what it's like to be in a different context away from your comfort zone, and you could learn a lot from that. But yes.
Thank you so much. A quick question. So you mentioned you get to travel, you can travel a day or two per month. Did you get to travel to some of the surrounding countries, or was it too difficult to get there from where you were?
So I think like the rule for us was like no leaving the country for like the first 6 months or so. But you were able to travel around the country, and we did travel around the country a lot. The country, so let's see if I can show it here. It was the size of of Texas. No, that's not it. Here we go. Yeah, the country is the size of Texas with the population of Austin. So this is Botswana. And so, yeah, it's the size of Texas with the population of Austin. I lived in this corner here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out exactly, but
and what are the countries, the surrounding countries? Or I mean, there.
So we have
Zimbabwe.
So South Africa, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Zambia, Mozambique. Eswatini is here's where the guy from Netflix
Peacecorps.
was. Yeah. And then Lesotho. Yeah, and so I did get to travel around here, close to Bourbonnais. I was in Motla-Banang, but the major city that I would travel to just to go to my grocery shopping would be Palape. So I'd have to go all the way here just to get groceries. But the main village was down here, so about 8 hours down. And so we would do a lot of traveling around here, especially we would love to go up to the north where Kasane, this is where the Okavango Delta meets. So you have all four of these countries, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Zambia, Botswana. They all meet at this little corner here. And there's just like waterfalls and animals, hippos, just amazing, so amazing. It's probably the top place to visit. If you're going to be in Botswana, this is where everything is. You'll see all the tourists there. It's so nice. But yeah, so we would travel up there sometimes. This is the Kalahari Desert, so you just wouldn't go there because Kalahari Desert. But yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. I love your story and the success, and I'm really excited for you. And I'd love to keep in touch on LinkedIn and see your career take off with Nestle. That's really exciting. Hard work has paid off.
Yes. And also I wanted to show, so while I was there, I did start a YouTube channel just to kind of tell my family what it was like for me while I was there. So some of my first videos was Peacecorps Botswana. You can do a walking tour to see what my house was like and what my village was like. I've also done some about study abroad and stuff like that. But here's Peacecorps training home, so you can see what our training house was like. This picture is us 80 volunteers in the airport as we were getting ready to get to Botswana. And then just other fun stuff that we did. So you can always check out my YouTube channel to see different things I've done in the Peace Corps, as well as studying abroad and other international stuff I've done. The channel is called Getting to Know, but it may be easier to find under Todos the Mem.
Under what's it called?
It is Todos the Mem.
Okay.
Yeah, it is Todos, like us all, we all in Spanish, the in English, and then Mem is the same in French, so it just means we're all the same.
Okay. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.